The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas, critical opinions in Southeast Asia. Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
And you are with us at Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today in our Durian Heat, we have 3 guests. One is from the Philippines, another one all the way from South Africa, and of course another one is from Malaysia. All 3 of them share one thing in common. They are all Muslim, the younger generations of Muslims. And of course today, why we are gathering them is because this Saturday will be a special day.
And it's approaching in a few days, and a lot of people are expecting and anticipating for this special day, especially couples.
We are talking about Valentine's Day.
That's correct.
Of course, when it comes to Valentine's Day, there's always a debate whether it is should it be celebrated? Should love, be confined into just one day, or should love be celebrated on every day, every day, every second, or every moment?
One thing for sure, it's very commercialized, and then it's been practiced. And one of actually few countries, they put a huge significance in this special day, especially for couples.
Yeah, the commercial aspect is one thing, but there are other aspects that we want to discuss. In this case, we want to know what are the general trends and views of Muslims, young Muslims in this region, as well as from South Africa. So let me introduce Jasmine Suleik from the Philippines. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hey. And also we have from Malaysia, Zurairi, Rahman.
Hi, hello there.
And of course, from all the way from South Africa, we have Tariq.
Hi.
So let's start with introducing yourself first. We can start with Jasmine.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Suleik from the Philippines. So as we all know, Philippines is a Catholic populated country. So here in the Philippines, I guess everyone's celebrating the Valentine's Day.
And you are representing which organization?
Young Moro Professionals.
So
a group. Yeah.
So what is Young Moro Professional?
So it is an organization composed of young professionals who are Muslims.
And Zurairi.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Zurairi AR. I am a senior correspondent from Kuala Lumpur-based online news site Malay Mail Online. I also keep a weekly column there that also comes out in the print Sunday Mail, where I write about mostly religion and politics. I'm from Malaysia, where Valentine's Day is considered prohibited by the religious institution.
And you, Tariq?
Hi, I'm Tariq Appleby from Cape Town, South Africa. I studied at the Islamic University of Medina, and I've been a lecturer and a counselor for the last 8 years.
So, first of all, let's talk about what exactly is Valentine's Day. Can you share with us, Jasmine? I mean, growing up in a Catholic populated nation, what exactly is Valentine's Day, and how do Filipinos usually celebrate it?
So here in the Philippines, Valentine's Day is actually just a common holiday or just a common event that, the lovers could actually go out and everyone would be full of red. But as I have learned way back in elementary, that Valentine's Day is actually celebrated for the martyrdom of Saint Valentine, which I think isn't really considered nowadays, since Valentine's Day is now used as a symbolism of love.
But is Valentine's Day a religious celebration in the Philippines?
Not really. I don't even know anyone who actually correlated their celebration of Valentine's Day with that of Saint Valentine.
And Zurairi, we say in Malaysia, Valentine's Day is actually banned, or there's a campaign to ban Valentine's Day by certain religious bodies. Why people see Valentine's Day as a Christian holiday rather than just a commercialized holiday?
Well, the misconception, or probably the myth of Valentine's Day being a Christian celebration, I think it has to do with a couple of religious decree or fatwa issued by the Malaysian religious authorities. I think the first one was back in it was by the 71st National Fatwa Council during November 2005, where they have declared that Valentine's Day is haram or prohibited towards Muslims because it contains elements of Christianity or religious ritual. And there is also another fatwa given by the Selangor State Fatwa Committee. That's the year after that, 2006, where it is along the same line. And since that year, I think it is almost an annual occurrence during Friday sermons, which correlates with the Valentine week. There will always be warnings against Muslims against celebrating it. So I guess that is where the perception that Valentine's Day is a Christian celebration comes from. It's solely from the religious authorities here.
Interesting. You although you're from South Africa, but you are all the way from Cape Town, which is you have some Malay heritage, I believe.
Yeah, I do.
and you yourself, do you think celebrating Valentine's Day is a religious celebration? Or do you think people in Cape Town or whoever that is Muslim celebrating Valentine's Day is just a way for them to to show their love on that particular one day?
I think that in South Africa it's definitely not a religious holiday. No one has any belief that it's connected to Christianity or any other religion for that matter. And also in South Africa, it's as we said at the beginning, it's very much a commercial sort of event, something that businesses use to encourage people who love each other, who want to express that love, to go out and buy gifts and attend, parties and things like that. So from that perspective, as a South African Muslim, it doesn't have that religious connotation. And I don't think it has had that religious connotation for centuries.
I wanted to ask because the origin of Valentine's Day, it comes from, we all know it's Saint Valentine, how he was in the prison and he fell in love with a daughter, and then after that it sort of became like commercialized. It has become the symbol for couples out there. That's how it's been practiced until now. And then there are a few countries around the world that actually banned celebrating Valentine's Day by the Muslim community or the groups. And on the other hand, there are also groups who are against this, banning of Valentine's Day here. So my question is, what is your perspectives when it comes to banning this special day?
Do you want to answer, Tariq?
Okay. I think from my perspective, having worked with the youth in Cape Town and also in India, I lived in India and also now in Malaysia. I think that it is, in my opinion, it's almost dangerous to always boil something down to one particular reason. And I think that in Cape Town especially, what we do find is that there is a huge percentage of the Muslim youth and youth in general that are, having, sexual intercourse outside of marriage, illegitimate children, children that are being abandoned as babies, STDs, STIs,
and abortions.
Abortions. So I think that whether the religious authorities in Malaysia or anywhere else they want to ban something, I think that we need to be a bit more open-minded about the reality of certain things. And definitely Valentine's Day, in my experience, has been something that growing up, it's a place where it's a day where you would express your love, and that love is expressed in many different ways. Okay, so we need to be also very much aware that it's not always a sort of clearly religious, issue, that it has social and other, sort of other perspectives as well. And one thing that I want to share with you is the fact that there's a huge percentage of the youth that are suffering from heartbreak, suffering from broken relationships and things like that. And I think that from my perspective as a counselor, that is also something that needs to be discussed, not necessarily only clearly the religious ruling on something, is it permissible, is it not permissible, but also the other effects that days like this, or any other day for that matter, and any other associated practice is how it's going to affect the youth and how it does affect them. Having counseled probably hundreds of youngsters, Valentine's Day and the culture that comes before it, during it, and after it is something that also needs to be discussed. And I think that religious authorities also need to discuss that. Valentine's Day is only one occurrence every year, and so we need to be spending a lot of time, preparing the youth for other things as well. And a lot of the effort, like these, fatwa that our brother mentioned, I think that a lot of effort needs to be put into making sure that people are prepared for every aspect of life, and we shouldn't just be focusing on this particular day.
But in Malaysia, of course, there's just too many holidays, too many days to celebrate.
That's a lot of holidays.
I want to add on with Jasmine. Do you celebrate Valentine's Day?
No.
Can you tell us why?
Actually, in the Philippines, the Filipino Muslims, they actually make a campaign reminding the other Muslims not to celebrate it, rationalizing it to them. Since we all know that this Valentine's Day can actually attract other stuff rather than celebrating the love itself. Like, for example, in the Philippines, there are times that there's an organization that actually offers free condom along the street here in the Philippines. So they've actually considered having this premarital sex or having this special celebration during Valentine's Day. So it is highly discouraged in the Muslim youth here in the
So it's highly discouraged for the Muslim youth in the Philippines to celebrate Valentine's Day?
Yes.
Okay.
And then could you elaborate more on the campaigns that it's been practiced? How long has it been, and when it has started?
Here in the Philippines, usually during Valentine's Day, what the universities do is that they would invite motivational talks. They will provide motivational talks to these youth so that they will be reminded that Valentine's Day isn't celebrated through different sexual activity as such, because it was said that during Valentine's Day there are a lot of teenagers that are getting pregnant during this day. So that was one action of the universities here in the Philippines. And one more thing is that since in the Philippines, one of the hot topics is the RH bill. So those pro RH bill, they just go along the streets and provide free condoms to these people, especially the youth who's come to the streets.
I see. But don't you think by providing free condoms, what they are doing is trying to avoid, premarital pregnancy? It's like prevention rather than, things happen and then you have to clean off the mess.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. But then, the other youth cannot really...
Hello? Yes, you can continue.
But tip on that is that yes, it can be beneficial in a way, but then there are also youth that doesn't engage in such activities. But then probably if they got exposed to that kind of offer, then maybe that's the time that they would think about it.
Mm-hmm. And you want to add on something, Zurairi? Because majority of the view why Valentine's Day is discouraged would be because of the social impact of it, and hence they tie in with religious reason. But what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I think when you mentioned just now, Jasmine, that in Philippines there is a sort of campaigns by providing free condoms during Valentine's Day. Well, we don't have that here, but we have a counter protest instead, where people actively approach youth saying that you should not celebrate Valentine's Day, and it's sanctioned by the federal Islamic authorities. I think the name of the campaign is somewhere along the line of "Beware the Trap of Valentine's Day." So it has that. The campaign is motivated by the notion, the opinion that people have a lot of sex during Valentine's Day, and I think that's very presumptuous, because you are the one associating Valentine's Day with sex, with premarital sex, or in Islamic terms illicit sex, zina. So I think that is part of the big motivation of the counter campaign against Valentine's Day. But I think that's, first of all, that assumes a lot of things that is unfair towards the Muslim youth, and that is one thing. And even if Muslims have sex during Valentine's Day, well, it's not as if Valentine's Day is the only time that people might have illicit sex. So by only concentrating on Valentine's Day, you are not exactly addressing the root of the problem. That's what I feel. Although personally, I do not feel that religious institutions or religious authorities should have, and I don't think they should have any rights in regulating or legislating the lives of Muslims in Malaysia. But well, that's how it is. And I think just now Grace mentioned about Saint Valentine's, right? How the start of the celebration was the story of Saint Valentine's. Right? I think what perhaps something interesting that I just found out a couple of weeks ago was that prior to the times of ancient English, during the times of the poet Chaucer, Valentine's Day was not exactly celebrated to celebrate love. It was to celebrate sacrifice of Saint Valentine's. It was only during the ancient English times that Chaucer started writing poetries venerating Valentine's Day as something to celebrate love. So I think that's how it started. And then the modern Valentine's Day that we are celebrating right now, I think it's pretty much just a commercial and purely secular celebration. It all started. It has
become a symbol.
Yeah. I mean, I think it started to become really, really famous and big, a global thing when the Americans started using Valentine's Day as a way to sell a lot of cards, greeting cards, and then. Yeah, I mean, even now, people use it just as a very capitalistic way of selling things. You know, like if you love your wife, buy her diamond. If you love your girlfriend, buy them flowers, buy them gifts.
So this it's not just about Valentine's Day, but this is about all the special day celebration that has become a commercialized event in today's modern society.
Yeah, there's Christmas, there's Halloween.
Even Hari Raya in Malaysia has become so commercialized.
Yeah, I mean, even Ramadan in Malaysia is becoming like it's not so much about fasting. So it's more about eating. It's like
more
a 1 month
season.
Yeah, 1 month festival of food.
So Jasmine, do you have anything to respond to this?
Because I cannot. I don't know the concept in Malaysia, because here in the Philippines, actually not all Muslims are really practicing. So here in the Philippines, unlike in Malaysia, that the Islamic teachings are well emphasized, here in the Philippines, the Islamic teachings came from the family itself, the basic unit of the community. Since here in the Philippines, we don't really have active madrasa or Islamic teachings, we're more on the theology or the Christian teachings. So I can say that not all Muslim youth here are well updated on the laws of Islam. But as I have read that it's part of the Sharia that the only festivals that is actually recognized in Islam is the Eid al-Fitr and the Eid al-Adha. So that says that other festivals rather than that shouldn't be recognized by the Muslims and shouldn't be celebrated.
Do you want to... I'm sure you have a lot of things to say, since Zurairi mentioned a lot on other aspect of Valentine's Day and even its origins itself.
Yeah, I think that definitely that historical background is important. Understanding where the day came from, also tracing it to where we are now, and that's important. But I agree with him in certain aspects that the religious bodies, their duty is more to educate than it is to legislate. Okay, because.
But now you are seeing it the other way around, is it?
Yeah. No. For me is I would like us to focus on everything and not focus on individual days or issues, because as you said, the Muslim youth are, if they are engaged in illicit sexual intercourse or premarital,
you don't have to wait until Valentine's Day.
No one's waiting for that. Okay, people
Let's
are not
schedule it to Valentine's Day.
No one's waiting for the 14th of February, to be intimate with his girlfriend or with her boyfriend. No one's waiting for that. Okay, so I think that we need to be very honest with ourselves what's happening out there. Okay, we need to. I'm sure that if we went to clinics and hospitals and places where abortions were being offered, we would see that this problem is happening the entire year.
Yep.
Okay, if we see the amount of youth going for birth control, that's going to be something that we're going to see happening every single day. In Cape Town, a nurse came to me and she said, do you know how many young Muslim girls come here for birth control? 12, 13, 14 years old. And that's not on the 14th of February or 9 months later. So for me, in reality, I'm all about education, and I would like us to educate the youth about all of the issues because, as I said earlier, heartbreak is a huge issue, and it has caused so many people to commit suicide or to hurt themselves, and things like that. And I think that we could possibly use Valentine's Day as a means of creating awareness about the after effects, not only of the celebration of this day, but also of falling in love and then falling out of love and being dumped and things like that. Besides all of the other issues that go with that, sexually transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancy, all of those kinds of issues. And I would like to see us focusing on that, 364 days of the year, so that we can protect the youth, because ultimately that's really what the religious authorities want to do. It isn't about, in my opinion, I'm not really familiar with, I haven't met, all of these muftis and all of these scholars, and I haven't gone to their offices and really sat down with them, but I'm sure that they are motivated by a good intention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that we shouldn't view this as being, these are these old guys that just want to, sort of kill people's fun. I think they are motivated by a good intention, right? They are motivated by that, and I think that we should be honest in saying that, okay, you might be wrong in the way that you're approaching this, but I do agree with you that there are certain concerns that that we all have, and personally, I would like us to see us focus on this in a more holistic way, because this issue is just a reminder of, and I think this is also from the religious authorities, from their perspective, this day is like a big reminder of all of the problems that we do have in the community, especially amongst the youth.
Okay.
And then we should be able to just focus on that and say, okay, that's a good start. Everyone's awake right now, so let's move forward and actually do more, because there's so much more that needs to be done.
That's
I would
true.
love to add a few points and also ask Tariq about it, because I do agree a few points that you mentioned just now, especially education.
Yeah.
Because after all, the fundamental part needs to be fixed to be able to bring the awareness to the public, especially for youngsters who's out there to celebrate this so-called special day for couples. And not only the rate of sex is increasing, but also the consumption of alcohol among youngsters is so dramatically increasing as well.
Are you talking in the experience of South Korea as well?
Well, South Korea, I wouldn't deny. That goes same for the Japan as well. However, my point here is, how do we approach youngsters? We already have our own mindset to celebrate Valentine's Day. It's been practiced, and also we see all those commercials like from media and then in the public places. How do we actually establish this campaign from the first place?
Well, before you answer, I think we should take a short break. When we return, we have Tariq here to give his view.
Okay.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas, critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
We are back with our Durian Heat together with our guest here. We have a new guest. His name is Elfie. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Muhammad Elfie, and I'm from Kajang. So I am interested in this kind of topics, and I would like to share my opinion on this. I'm a Muslim, by the way.
Mm-hmm. So, so all of us, all the panels here are of Muslim origin or are Muslims, and sharing their views on Valentine's Day. So before we go further, Grace asked a very interesting question to you. So Tariq, maybe you want to respond.
Just to recap what the questions were, I wanted to point out how do we approach, especially youngsters, when it comes to education, and even to start a campaign, especially in Malaysia, if you talk about the Malaysian context.
Okay, I think that the first thing we need to understand is that the youth are the same around the world. Okay, their cultural backgrounds, it doesn't really matter that much. And so there are two things that I focus on in my workshops and my work with the youth. The first is, giving the youth purpose. Like, what is their purpose? Growing up, like, what exactly are you supposed to be? Where are you supposed to be going? What are you supposed to be doing with your life? What do you view as your purpose? And the second reason, or the second issue, is self-esteem and confidence. And so the reason why so many youth fall into, alcohol use or drinking and drug abuse and everything else is because these two things are missing in their lives. And so we're always looking for that. And from my personal perspective, as a former drug addict, that for me was what was missing in my life. And I focus on that now. And there's a book, a brilliant book in my opinion, by Sean Covey. It's called The 6 Most Important Decisions That a Teenager Will Make. And so these two things, the last thing that he discusses, the most important, or the 6th decision, is self-esteem and confidence. And when you don't have that, then you are going to be, you're going to fall prey to anything. Whether it's a commercial campaign, whether it's, peer pressure, whatever it might be, it's going to be easy to fall into those type of things. And so if we can focus on that and make that, our focus of education, then we will be able to solve, in my opinion, a range of issues, not only alcohol abuse or drug abuse or premarital sex or, whatever the issue might be. So we need to give youth a sense of, who they are, where they're going, and also give them the confidence that they need to grow up as teenagers and as young adults.
So you are focusing more on the long-term process of change.
No, it's not. It's not really long-term. It's what they need now. To deal with now. And also, yes, to deal with long-term, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, for the entire life. Because if you grow up and you don't know who you are, or where you want to go, why you are doing what you do, then it's going to be very difficult for you to focus on anything. Okay, whether it's your relationship with your parents or your friends or your education, many people drop out because they don't see the point of school.
Then so is it also important to bring the awareness about the origin of Valentine's Day, because it does relate to the religiously. So to youngsters, is it important to highlight these points as well?
Personally, I don't think that's important.
Okay, let's move on to Elfie. Do you celebrate Valentine's Day? Can you speak louder?
Well, no, I don't, because for religious reasons, and I don't think that...
When you say religious reason, can you explain more?
Well, according to the Prophet, we Muslims have 2 official celebrations, which is the 2 Eids, and we are not encouraged or even told to celebrate any other.
So we can't even celebrate like our own birthday? Is that what you mean as well?
Well, we can celebrate our own birthdays, but in a personal capacity, not something official, like having a large celebration, telling everyone else about it, and involving a community of people.
But in Malaysia, it's quite a norm for people to celebrate almost every single day, whether it's religious, non-religious. People celebrate it as if it's part of the Malaysian culture in a way.
Yes, it is something that needs to be changed. Actually, it's something that we need to look at from a proper perspective of the Quran and the Sunnah.
But why we shouldn't celebrate things that is beyond the 2 holidays that you mentioned?
Simply because the Prophet did not tell us to do that. So we should introduce something new into our religion.
But what's the repercussion for celebrating it?
Well, because when you start celebrating, for example, let's say you see the Christians in America, they have this celebration called Thanksgiving. It is not a Christian tradition. It does not involve anything related to Christianity, but it's actually an event whereby the Americans, the first settlers came and brought gifts to the Red Indians, the people, the inhabitants, and they exchanged gifts, and there was a feast and all sorts of things. But over time, over the ages, it became a Christian celebration. It started involving Christianity, it started involving religious events. Though this is something that will cause a lot of huge implications for the religion.
What kind of implication, just to be clear, what do you mean?
it causes innovation, new innovations, and then it can affect the core of our belief.
I see.
Yeah, you see. Yeah.
So, one of the reasons, as what he said, is celebrating certain festival that is not part of the norm of that particular culture might affect the core belief of that particular society. Do you agree with that, Zurairi?
I think when you talk about beliefs, right? When Muslims talk about belief, I think it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to stop anything that has not to do with the tradition. I mean, I think Islamic teachings is not meant to be isolated. It's supposed to branch out towards the future. I think things will always change. You are not always going to have the same culture as you had thousands of years ago. Things will always change. So I think what religion, or in this case Islam, has to do is to evolve, is to accept these sort of things and be adaptable and compatible with modern times.
But how can you be adaptable when certain parts of the religion are either being literally understood or is being written there as part of facts, or at least being understood as part of facts?
Yeah, I think this is a much bigger discussion now, but I think part of the problem in the Muslim world right now is when people understand the holy book as literal. So it's meant to be as a guide, as to live a good life rather than a literal interpretation. That's all I can say.
I'm sure you have a different perspective because you have been growing up all the way in South Africa, which is Muslim is the minority population there. So going to Malaysia and living here for, I guess, more than a year would be, you must have an interesting experience, understanding how the local culture and understanding of Islam would be. Maybe you can share a bit more.
Yeah, what I like to share, from my personal perspective, growing up in Cape Town and also now living here, is that things about like the literal interpretation and Islam evolving and Islam needing reformation and all of those type of things. I think that what's important to understand is, and this is now being here for a year, is that most people, frankly speaking, are very ignorant about Islam. Okay, and that is something that for me, as I said a few times already, is why I focus on education. Because we cannot have these kinds of discussions if the fundamentals...
Can you explain what you mean by ignorant of Islam?
I'll give you a simple example. You ask most Muslims, especially the youth around the world, what the word La ilaha illallah means. Okay, so a typical translation of that phrase in from Arabic is going to be that there's no God worthy of worship except Allah. Okay, but you ask most people, they'll say there's no God but God, which doesn't really mean anything. Okay, or they will, some people even mistranslate it completely. Okay, and that is the fundamental aspect of the religion, but many people are ignorant of that. And that's my experience growing up in my own family, and also having traveled to 13 countries, and asking, youngsters, young people, not even, we're not talking about like adults, we're just talking about teenagers, asking them that question, what does La ilaha illallah mean? And people not really understanding what it means. So we can't really have any other discussions. We can't really be talking about, issues of reform and whether Islam needs to evolve and whether Islam, is compatible with the modern age, and those kinds of discussions are going to be very difficult for people to grasp if they don't understand what the religion is and what its core is. And I think that we are like a group of people that are trying to understand advanced calculus, and we have yet to master arithmetic. That's our society right now. Okay, we are having discussions about calculus and advanced algebra, and we are still learning how to count 1 + 1.
So are you saying that societal understanding, or at least some people, when they understand religion, or even not just religion but the whole situation surrounding Valentine's Day, is very surface sort of understanding?
Definitely, without a doubt. Okay, the fact that we are choosing to discuss Valentine's Day and Christmas and Easter and Halloween, and we are focusing on those issues, says a lot about our academic and intellectual development in the Muslim world. The fact that we are focusing, like in Malaysia, the focus is heavily on the ability to recite the Quran. but very little emphasis on understanding it. Okay, and that's a huge problem. So we can't even talk about interpretation yet if we don't even have a basic understanding. Okay, we can't talk about who's qualified to interpret, whether it's the religious bodies or it's a scholar, or can the layman do it. We can't have that yet if we are still focusing on those on those surface matters as you call them. And I think that once we bring about the change where everyone's on the same page regarding a basic understanding, we're going to be having this issue for the next few decades.
There's a lot of campaign, to ban Valentine's or to encourage people not to even celebrate it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a wise move for some religious body to do that, or should they just focus on entirely different aspect?
Again, like I said earlier, I think that there's a good intention there. Okay, but what I don't want to see, whether I agree with that or not, I haven't yet made up my mind. But what I know I don't agree with is that if next week on Monday, no one's talking about anything, that I definitely disagree with. If there's no issue, there's no campaign, there's no discussion about any other issue, then that's a problem. Okay? But if the religious authorities are focusing on Valentine's Day, and they are focusing on the teenage pregnancy problem you have in Malaysia, if they're focusing on drug abuse amongst the youth, that's their Wednesday campaign, and the next Friday, sermon is going to be about, the fact that, parents are being abandoned in old age. If that's another campaign that we're going to have, then I'm all for focusing on issues. But if there's only 1 or 2 or 5 issues that we focus on in the entire year, that is problematic. Okay, and I definitely have a problem with that, and I think that that's something that we need to, if we're gonna try to get something positive out of this, because we're always gonna have this campaign, pro and anti. I think more than that, we need to make everyone aware that these kinds of issues or whatever is being identified is just it's a symptom of other things. It's a symptom of ignorance. It's a symptom of cherry picking exactly what you want to focus on, and that is a disease that we have around the world. Okay.
I want to ask you, Elfie. You mentioned that one of the problem that you have with Valentine's Day, or maybe any other day that is a bit foreign to you, would be because it might affect the core belief of Muslim. Let's say you put it in the Malaysian context. Do you think Malay Muslim are easily confused with their own belief system?
Well, I think the problem is with our education system, you see, because I've been through the system. I've been through religious classes in sekolah rendah and sekolah menengah, the primary and secondary schools, and my knowledge of Islam that I gain now is not from the schools. I gain my knowledge of Islam the way I understand it now after I have left school. So you see, the problem in the schools today is the emphasis is too much on the text. It's too much literal. It does not emphasize on spiritually enhancing yourself. So people are just memorizing the text. They are just answering the questions for the sake of answering the questions, and they do not understand a single word of it.
So are you saying like a lot of the youngsters, they are followers? They just follow whatever that looks cool or that feels right, rather than using their own thinking to decide?
Unfortunately, to me, it looks that way. Yeah.
But do you think a religious body has the right to protect the belief of youngsters, or should they let young people to think of their own, whether should they celebrate Valentine's or not?
Well, it has its pros and cons, you see. So if the religious bodies do not interfere, they are seen as being lax and letting the youth to just rot away. If they do interfere, they are seen as being meddling and interfering into other people's affairs. So it's actually a chicken and egg situation. Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with both Tariq and Elfie. Is that the problem is in Malaysia, a lot of the focus being put on Islam is on practice rather than on the values that are brought by the religion itself. So we have a lot of the religious authorities nitpicking on how Muslims are practicing the religion rather than their understanding of the religion itself. So I think when you mentioned just now the obsession of policing the lives of Malaysian Muslims, I think it is probably because it is a very easy thing to do. It is much easier to police the lives of Muslims, to do all these sort of campaigns, banning things, prohibiting things. It is much easier to do that rather than like both of them saying that educating people as in the values behind it, why they should not be involved. Or I mean, when Grace said there is a problem there, I do not exactly feel that illicit sex or probably drinking as a problem per se, but rather I believe in minimizing harm rather than abstaining. So I think when you
say minimizing harm, that you don't mind people distribute condoms during Valentine's Day just to make sure that.
For example, but I think the problem here is when you tell youth to abstain from either from sex or from alcohol, you are mystifying sex and alcohol. So you make it seem more desirable. So I think what is more important here is to demystify it, and at the same time you minimize harm. You minimize the numbers of teenage pregnancies. You minimize the numbers of aborted pregnancies, that sort of thing, sexual diseases, that sort of thing. That's what I meant.
How do you demystify it? If you can probably
I think
give a quick share.
For example, just a simple example, for sex is definitely sex education, and
I think Tariq also mentioned about sex education. I believe so.
Yeah,
sex and love education.
Yeah, it's not so much because I mean youth they understand that you just have to go on the internet and you will know everything you need to know about sex.
But it's internet.
No, it isn't a mystery. I think that's the point. It's not a mystery. Yeah. Okay, but what is a mystery is that people don't understand the effects of that. Mm-hmm. They don't understand what that means.
But a lot of this come from sources like the internet rather than coming from people like you or people.
But even if you get
parents.
that, I mean, we had sex education classes in Cape Town when I was in high school, and I mean they told us how to use this and how not to use that, and and things like that. But no one really spoke about the psychological impact of that, because as a 15-year-old, are you really ready to have sex? I mean, whether you talk about religion or you don't. Okay, whether you told yourself it's permissible. As a 15-year-old boy or girl, are you really ready? Psychologically, physically, you might be, definitely. Yeah. But are you ready for that? Are you ready for what that means? In terms of falling in love with this person, and all of those kinds of implications. So I think that sex education, if it's going to deal with all of those things, then it should be, and that's one of the things that Sean Covey discusses in his book. It's dating and sex, because it's not just about the physical part.
Exactly.
And I wanted to point out the social media's effect on the public itself, because banning Valentine's Day, especially in Malaysia, it's been going on, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but
since 2005.
with the development of social media, only nowadays people are raising their voice against or supporting this campaign, so-called. So there are pros and cons of having social media, but it's also a form of education, you see, to deliver the message to people. But what is your perspective on this, the function of social media?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe you can answer first.
Well, in the terms of Valentine's Day, perhaps?
Yeah, especially this context.
Well, I frankly, I do not see the role of social media as being contained just for this. I mean, it's not specifically just have to do with Valentine's Day. So I don't really have anything to add to that.
No, for example, people are posting the pictures, holding the paper that I am against the Valentine, especially from Muslim groups, and then there goes a debate, for students or youngsters saying that why are you doing this? We want to celebrate. We have our own right to celebrate Valentine's Day.
But could it be actually a positive thing that finally, ideas are colliding and people are actually talking about this rather than converting the converted? I would say you're actually trying to move the discussion one level up and try to see what are the convergence ideas. Would that be?
I don't want to say it's right or wrong thing to do, but then we would love to hear your ideas on this. Like, what's the effect, or is it a correct move to convey the messages?
It's probably not. We couldn't. Yeah, like I said, it's not exactly correct or wrong, but I think it is wonderful that there is a contestation of ideas right now, rather than just having a top-down approach from the religious authorities. No, you cannot do this. No, you cannot do that. I think there should be you need to get the best idea out of things. You have to look at it from a lot of perspectives. So you have to see it from the religious authority side. You have to see it from the youth side. You have to see from when you have all these different perspectives on what things should be, what
or from a
Valentine's
marriage counselor side.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from those who have married, those who are having good relationship, those who are not. So when you see this, when all of these different perspectives surface on, for example, social media, you get a more holistic view of the whole issue, rather than having it been dominated by just one point of view. That's what I feel.
Okay. Do you agree with that, or you have any other view?
No,
You're an internet activist, isn't it?
I'm quite active. Yeah, but I think it's good that a lot of different people are actually expressing their opinion on the web.
But are they doing it in the most civil way possible? I mean, internet is a free space, isn't it?
That's why I was laughing, because I think that for if anyone has ever seen a debate on Facebook, it is not civil. It is not civil at all. So yes, it's good that people can express that opinion, but people are not necessarily saying, "Oh, that's a good point. Let me write that down." Let me add that to my to my thinking process. I don't think that normally happens. And the other issue that I just want to add before Elfie continues, and sorry to cut him off there, is that it doesn't matter what you enforce. Whether you're enforcing a law, whether you're enforcing an Islamic ruling, people will decide what they're going to do. And ultimately, I think that that's why education would be the best way forward, because just by educating people, getting that message out there, whether it's on social media or not, people can then make that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I can tell you, don't do that, but you'll be like, I don't care, I'll do it anyway. And that's basically what's going to happen on Saturday. Right? So I think that we need to focus.
Effect.
Yeah, we need to focus on what we can do. Because I can bring people to the water, like the horse to the water, but I can't make it drink, and I think that as a teacher, that needs to be my focus. Okay? And, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. I think the core reason why youngsters want to choose Valentine's Day or even any other day to express their love is because I think love is a very powerful emotion. It evokes a lot of really positive emotion among people, and a lot of younger generation are probably confused or craving messages about love or information about it. But nowadays, especially with the climate of fear in this country and the climate of, don't talk about it, is you are too young to actually talk about it. Do you think probably, society or even religious leaders and all that should probably rethink their approach in terms of trying to either explain or trying to address the issue, not just about Valentine's Day, but issue about relationship, love, heartbreak, even divorce. Who wants to answer? Elfie, you want to continue? Okay.
Well, I teach a workshop called The 5 Languages of Love. Because psychologists have found that if you are in love, if you think you are in love, and you get married, it's going to be on average 2 years before that fades away, and you're going to be faced with the harsh reality. Okay, that's on average, and that's why many couples get divorced in the first 5 years. Okay, and Malaysia has a divorce every 10 minutes.
Wow.
That's amongst Muslims and non-Muslims. Actually, the divorce rate amongst non-Muslims is higher. Amongst Muslims is higher than non-Muslims in Malaysia. But be that as it may, I think that there needs to be education about that, and so how to keep that love alive, and to make sure that couples stay together. I think that we need to focus on that, because we don't really focus on that. We think that Valentine's Day and roses and and expressions of love and that's really going to keep the love alive, and that's not really what's going to keep it alive. And so Dr. Gary Chapman, in his book The 5 Languages of Love, he discusses 5 things that you need to do to make sure that speaking your spouse's love language, and that's keeping the love alive. And I think we need to focus on that. If couples knew these things before they got married, a lot of people would stay married. they would have like beautiful relationships, and then they would keep that love alive, definitely. So I think that we focus on that. We need to educate people about relationships, about heartbreak, about being in love and not being in love, and we need to give people the kinds of tools and skills that they need to be happy. And that's something we want to focus on, because we want a community where people are happy the whole year, not only on Valentine's Day. Oh, my wife, she bought me a gift. Oh, wow, amazing, right? And then next week, there's nothing. And then the next week, and she, I tell her I love her on Valentine's Day, and I make a big, proclamation about it. Okay,
so you did celebrate Valentine's Day?
I used to celebrate Valentine's Day. I don't celebrate it now, because for me, I think that especially the last few years.
Probably your wife is waiting for a gift for you.
No, because as a marriage counselor, I realized that that's something that needs to be done like on a daily basis, because the 5 languages of love are basically words of appreciation and encouragement, spending quality time with your spouse, receiving gifts, acts of service, and then the last one is physical touch. And so how many of these 5 things, do we know that about our spouse? Which of these 5 things do they really appreciate more than anything else? What do I, out of these 5 things, what do I want more than anything else? Okay, because my wife might give me a gift, but I want a gift. I want you to spend time with me and talk to me. So, if we can educate couples on these issues, I think we will have a better community, a better society, better community. People that have more skills than the kinds of skills that they need to stay happy and to stay married and to stay in love.
So before we end the show, I want to go back to our topic of today, which is, do you think, after all the discussion here, should Valentine's Day be haram, and why?
Well, when you say haram, right? I mean, when you say prohibited, right? I mean, there are 2 levels of it. One is, of course, prohibited from the theological side. I mean, from the teaching side. Is it prohibited by the religion? And the other side is it prohibited by the authorities? And in this case, I mean, in this country, the context is it is prohibited by the authorities. And I think the reason for the religious authorities in Malaysia to ban it, to prohibit it, is very dishonest and very misguided, because they ban it first because they has deduced that it is a celebration that has Christian elements, and I think the information that is being used to perpetuate that misconception, and I think is not very accurate. For example, one of the articles that are often being quoted in Friday sermons as proof that Valentine's Day it means to worship the Roman god of Lupercalia. It was from an article. It's not even from a book. It's not even from a written article or a scholar paper. It's from a website maintained by a Seventh-day Adventist pastor back in Tennessee, US, called Ken Swiger, and they have used it over and over again every year. And I think that's very how to say it? I won't say it very intellectual, but it is very flimsy
academically
argument.
Dishonest.
That's the right word.
It's a very flimsy argument. You are basing your argument solely on a website maintained by some pastor in Tennessee, and a Christian one at that. I mean, not even a Muslim cleric. So yeah, I think that there needs to be more. It needs to be more thought out before they proclaim some sort of decree or ruling or fatwa on Valentine's Day to actually ban it. So that's how I feel.
And what about you? Do you have any other view on this? Do you think Valentine's Day should be haram, and why?
Well, for me, without a doubt that Valentine's Day is definitely not in the religion. But then again, so is Halloween, and so is Thanksgiving, and so is Easter. So for me, the authorities shouldn't make a hullabaloo about it. Actually, they shouldn't just go proclaim, oh, this is haram, we should not celebrate it. We just do not celebrate it. We do not speak about it. We do educate people on why it is forbidden in the religion, but we do not have to make a whole big fuss about it.
And we celebrate love every day, regardless whether it's Valentine's or not.
Yes, right.
And you?
Well, I think, and I'll get into trouble for not talking about this, so I'll just quickly. I think that people should just come to the marriage conference on Saturday. And, instead of just worrying about Valentine's Day, it'll be at PICC on Valentine's Day this year. And I think that, to answer your question, I think that we've laid down the foundations in this discussion for, in which we have looked at activism and education being like the real things that we need to focus on. So, as my friend said, that whether we ban it or we don't ban it, I think that what we need to focus is on what are we going to do after this. What are we going to focus on? What's the next issue going to be? All right, and we need to develop that. We need to develop a long-term plan so that we don't have this discussion every year. I think that for me, there's so many other issues like celebrating the Prophet's birthday. It's like every year, and I'm seriously tired of having those conversations, because I know, being involved with the youth and working with the communities, is that there's so much more out there. So many important issues. Like, people don't understand certain fundamental aspects of the religion. That's number one. And then number two, people have a lot of social problems, okay, which affect them every year, not once a year, when we have the particular thing. So for me, I don't really have an opinion about whether it should be banned or not banned.
I think that
my message to the religious authorities and to anyone involved in sort of Islamic propagation and social work is that they need to be focusing on these issues like every day. Okay, there's so much work to be done. We don't have time.
So we need to have a love education.
Yeah, we need to educate people how to be, the best in love that they can possibly be. And I'm part of that. And I'd like people to focus on that, because that's really where fulfillment and contentment is really going to be.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your views.
Thank you very much.